lockdowns, do you think they were necessary to protect lives? Because the doctor says he thinks they were necessary, ultimately.
I think it was necessary to look after the old and the elderly and the ill. And it would have been better if we had not a lockdown, but a very kind of targeted way of protecting certain section of the population. I think it was a big mistake to force children into lockdown. It undermined their education, and they're still paying the price for losing 2 years of schooling. I think it was a mistake to diminish our economic activity, because in many respects, we're now paying the price for losing resilience in the face of the global crisis that we're confronted with. And I think it was also a big mistake in terms of health, because experience shows that very often risk aversion creates more problems than it solves. And we know, for example, that after the bombings of 9/11, people stopped going on airplanes because they got scared, and they all went back on the road and drove in their cars. And far more people died as a result of car accidents than if they had stayed and flown in airplanes. And I think that it is very much the case that people's health suffered. I don't buy the idea that somehow patients and people didn't show up to doctors. I myself know of 2 women with breast cancer who didn't get a diagnosis. And one of them eventually did get a diagnosis, but wasn't really seen for 3 months. And she's not dead. And I, to some extent, blame the fact that that diagnosis wasn't caught early enough, because our obsession with COVID. I think COVID is a very real threat, very real danger, but we have to have a differential approach. And I think if you look at the example of Sweden, where they had a more laid-back orientation, but they allowed more things to carry on, particularly with children, we find the result of that is that their economy is healthier than ours. And in terms of lives lost, they didn't have more people die than we did, but they just had a freer life.